Hello there and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is sponsored by my sponsor Relentless Rebels. They are linked in the description below. They are not quite Celtic style, but they do sell Viking themed jewelry and accessories. Check out their website. If you like what you see, use the promo code NERD20 all in capitals at checkout to receive a 20% discount, and hopefully that's something you would like. It will help out the channel and it helps out you. If there's something you like, you get a discount. I don't see who loses in this scenario. With all that said, this is another episode in my Celtic series. In this case, it is on the title, or rather name, I am about to butcher of this tribe, the Corieltauvii. I'm going to go with that, Corieltauvii, as I have been corrected. They actually were originally known as something else, which I'll get to in a little bit, but this is actually believed to be a more accurate name for them. And I know on my intro screen, actually, if you look at the map, which, I'll be fair, that is not a map I made, I may have to make my own map, they are actually on that map with their original name that they were believed to be called, but is not actually their, or is now believed to be their true name. So apologies if I've referenced them in previous videos by the wrong name. I'll hope to correct that going forwards. And this episode is on the Corieltauvii. Let's just get started. The Corieltauvii were an English tribe that lived in what is now the English East Midlands, roughly Leicestershire area. Interestingly, Leicestershire, just to point it out, is actually on the site of what was originally their capital. Effectively, Leicestershire is their capital city, which was called, and again, sorry, can't pronounce this properly, I'm probably going to do it wrong, Corieltauvii. I'm going to put it on the screen, can't pronounce that. I'm trying to read it, I actually put it up for reference, and nope, I just can't read that. They were, as I mentioned earlier, I have previously referred to them as by the wrong name, as the Corieltauvii, and that's not what they're actually believed to be called. They're now believed to be called the Corieltauvii, or the Corieltauvii, or something along those lines. Again, pronunciations, it's likely both are wrong in all probability, but it's something along those lines. The interesting thing about this tribe is they were mostly agricultural people, and there's little evidence of major fortifications or military activity by the tribe, whereas the tribes near to them, such as the Corieltauvii, who lived to the south of the tribe, were very militaristic. And there's plenty of evidence that they were quite warlike, but these people, nothing. There's very few heavily fortified sites. In fact, it's believed that they were more likely a confederacy of smaller tribal kingdoms, is probably the wrong word. It may have been as small down to the level of a single hill fort allying together. They did, however, as I said, have a strong agricultural culture and were present during the Roman invasion, but didn't seem to place any major resistance against the Romans. To me, that implies that they were used to being somewhat subservient to another people, again, possibly the Corieltauvii, who they may have looked to for defense or protection, and they simply swapped that out for the Romans. Again, that's just a hypothesis. It does seem to fit the evidence, but it's just my hypothesis. There's no recorded singular leader, although they did begin producing their own coinage from about 50 BC, the earliest coins of which the lettering on it is too abbreviated to know what the names were, but there are several individuals who I'll do a later video on. Again, there's almost nothing on these people, but the coins do refer to certain kings who one of them may have been considered the overall king, and he was called Volicius. God, I'm bad at these old names. He may have been the tribal chieftain, but again, these were probably a confederacy of smaller kingdoms. It was just probably one voice amongst many, and there are a few others referenced. I'm not going to go into them because there isn't really much on them. But by the time of the Roman invasion, the names of these kings, such as Corieltauvii, was being minted onto the coins of this tribe. So there was some sense of unification, some sense of them. But they do have one of the landmarks of having one of the largest hoards of coinage ever found in Britain, actually coming from their territory. So we've got quite a lot of their coins, but generally speaking, it's probably smaller, a smaller confederacy of tribes rather than one big one. So again, this one's a little bit of an odd tribe to me. It's not really so much of a singular tribe as it was a group of people identifying with each other and working together collectively, probably because they weren't because of the lack of centralization of this tribe. There wasn't a standing army or military. Not that the Celts really had those, although I'm going to go into that in a future video about about Celtic warfare and weaponry and just how it was organized, and different ones did it in different ways, but there was a certain level of organization to it. Getting back to the tribe, rather than going off on a tangent, the tribe was effectively annexed in 44 AD, with their tribal capital falling to the Romans and being garrisoned by, I believe, the 9th Hispanic Legion, I believe I read. Yep, it was the 9th Hispanic Legion. They took the capital and were then garrisoned there. By took, it pretty much they just kind of turned up. These people didn't really offer any resistance. That was in 44 AD. Now bear in mind the Romans only turned up in like maybe 42, 43 AD. So they'd not been there long. This tribe just rolled over for them. Now, the corruption of the name, which I just want to point out, comes from, again, the good old Romans, who I have said before are not always the most reliable source of information, particularly for things that don't, even things actually that relate to their own society. But they tend to write history very revisionist style, and they don't always take care to translate things properly. And basically Ptolemy is the one who recorded their name, but then future authors have translated Welsh translations of their capital and of their name from the original Latin, and when they've looked at it, they actually believe that the name was actually Corieltauvii rather than Coraldini or whatever other versions of it. There were actually a few different versions of their names. It's mostly based on the naming of their capital, which a lot of Celtic capitals did bear the name of the tribe, or at least some relation to their founding or importance to it. So, as I said, that's where the corruption of it comes from. And the tribe was conquered pretty early on in the Roman conquest, and the Roman main artery through Britain, which I think we now call the M1, the Fosse Way, basically went straight through their capital, or at least entered it, as it became a major Roman civitas, or tribal capital, during the Roman period in the successive centuries of Roman rule over Britannia. So anyway, there we have the Corieltauvii. And just pointed out, there are 4 named rulers. I actually will quickly name them. Forgive me again with the pronunciations of this. Volicios, Domoncarveros, Domnovalanius, and Cartavelius rather. There are several major settlements of theirs that are known. Their territory also went over the areas of East Midlands of Lincolnshire, Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire and Rutland. They also may have had a major settlement at Sleaford. And I'll be honest, I don't even know where Sleaford is. My geography is not great, but I assume it's in the East Midlands. So as I said, there we have that tribe, and I did just have to put those things up on the screen because I cannot pronounce those words. I have to have a little Word document up. You notice a quick flash of light there. I cannot pronounce those names. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. I have to really focus. I'm getting off topic again. So anyway, there we have them. An interesting tribe that to me fits a bit of a niche. Now again, I'm going to go off on a bit of a hypothesis here. Again, I'm going to fall back on, as they were a tribal confederacy, it's conceivable, a bit like perhaps how some of the island nations is the wrong word, around Britain were probably semi-aligned to other tribes rather than having necessarily a distinct tribal identity of their own. They were offshoots from, connected to, or at varying times throughout their history, allied to or subjugated by other tribes. And that's my interpretation of how this tribe seemed to work. They're in what is, in Britain, if you're not British, you're looking at what is the agricultural heartland of Britain. And although there's always this reputation that Britain, everyone was a farmer in ancient times. They weren't, everyone was not a farmer. But these people were particularly agriculturally orientated. And an agricultural society doesn't have much room in it for war, defensive fortification building or additional trades, so they would have relied very heavily on import, export, and the goodwill of their neighbours. Now, the Corieltauvii, again, without going into them as they need their own video yet, were quite militaristic and had this tendency to subjugate the tribes that were near to them, or at least throw strong influence over them. Now, whether it was the Corieltauvii directly, or the Dabuni, or the Iceni, or some of the other tribes that were near to them, I believe, hypothesis only, feel free to contradict me, I could be completely wrong, I believe, although they were not part of these tribes, they were probably in some way under the dominion of them, under the influence of them, or in some way reliant on them to look to their defense. They were not in a position to do it themselves and would have been easy prey to anyone. But maybe if you play along, you do the political game, you throw on a lavish feast, cut prices for a particular tribe, maybe you get in their good graces, and if someone comes to give you trouble, you look to your ally for some help. They don't have to then directly rule you. They don't have to go to the expense and effort of conquering, annexing, and subjugating your territory. They've got everything they need as it is, and I think that, to me, is how this tribe probably survived. And it would explain the lack of centralization. There would have been no need, or at least less need, as different peoples would have simply looked to whoever, or whomever, or whatever was near to them for their aid or their trade. And when the Romans turn up, it's like, well, if the biggest, baddest power in the land isn't a match for them, we're definitely not. Welcome our new Roman overlords. All hail Caesar. And again, that is just my hypothesis. It's not something I can prove, and it's not something I've particularly read. It's just my interpretation of how the politics would likely have worked. These were not friendly times back then. Life was hard, and you would have needed help if you weren't strong enough to do things for yourself. It's not to say they were always like that, but to me, that's how they seem. Anyway, before I go on rambling too much, there isn't, as I said, a great deal more. At future videos, now lockdown is starting to be lifted in 2021, I am planning to go to some of these locations and do specifics about specific hill forts and other structures and places of significance connected to this video system, but at the moment I'm still not in a position to do that, but they are coming. So places like Leicestershire, things like that, where I can go and I can show you something specific to this tribe. I will do at some point in the future, but it'll probably be in the next few months, maybe even a year away, but they are there in the back of my mind, bubbling away to do. And again, I'm starting to ramble. It's quite late where I am. If you watch this video all the way to the end, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, comment down below, and also please check out my other two channels, Nerd.World and Nerd.World Films. Be honest, they're absolutely nothing like this channel, but if you check them out, maybe you'll like them. They're a similar format. It's me here talking about stuff, but it's not history related. They're just whatever I feel like being related to. The films one I think is fairly self-explanatory. Did I say like, share, subscribe, and comment down below? Don't remember. Just said it again. And with that said, bye-bye.